This is Steve Zeltzer with WorkWeek, and we have covered racist incidents around the country against working people, and also the attacks on Asians. And now we're speaking with Brianna Johnson, and she's the president of Black Student Union at University of San Francisco. So welcome to WorkWeek, Brianna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Brianna, you've been a student at University of San Francisco, and you've written your organization, the Black Student Union, has written a letter about the issue of racism and systemic racism at the university. Why don't you talk about your experience at University of San Francisco and why you think this incident took place of a
Okay.
hanging noose? Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, I think, as Black students, we all kind of have similar stories in terms of our decision to go to USF, what we thought it would be like, and, the message that was given to us by administrators or folks that were currently going there. And I think the first thing that recruiters, everyone from the University of San Francisco really said to me was like, the University of San Francisco is an incredibly diverse school. We have, we've won so many awards for diversity. And, this isn't something that you would get on a typical college campus. And I think so many of us really believe that. And that was one of, the most important reasons that we decided to go to USF, just because we felt like we would be comfortable and safe there. And I think the worst part about all of this is that we see that it has been the exact opposite. And I think that it really makes you think about, diversity in optics and what is just for like an image and what is actually like, where that inclusion piece comes in. Because what I think about USF is that, yes, there's diversity, but there's actually no inclusion. So there's, drives to get more students of color to come to the university. But, at the same time, when they get there, there's nothing set in place to actually make them feel included, to make them feel safe, happy, welcome. And I think we see that right now, where we were all recruited in terms of diversity, but now when we're there, a hate crime occurs and we all feel like the university genuinely does not care. So I think, that's the perfect way to kind of sum up my experience at the University of San Francisco. I believe that, they pride themselves on diversity, yet these instances of racism are not isolated, they're continuous. Within this last year, we've probably had, 5 emails sent out to us from President Fitzgerald, basically saying the same thing, like, I understand something racist happened, and we're going to do better. But at the end of the day, we have never got into that do better.
And this incident, it's not the first racist incident at University of San Francisco. What other incidents have there been in the past that you know about?
hmm I think just to start, unfortunately, this isn't the first incident regarding a noose. About 4 years ago, there was another incident where, students had created a noose, in association with an actual Black student, posted all over the internet. And of course, people were, upset, and the university basically just said that they believed that there was no malicious intent behind the noose. So I think that for this to happen again, and we feel like there's going to be a very similar outcome, I think that that's just like extremely frustrating. um, but instances of racism at USF literally span all across the spectrum. We have professors who are literally refusing to stop saying the N-word to Black students and in classes. And that is something that the university refuses to act upon. The most that they'll do is just have a conversation with the professor, and then the professor comes back into the class and continues to say the N-word. Um, even my freshman year, I had an instance where professor refused to stop saying it. And then, after they talked to him, he was like, well, I didn't understand that wasn't something I should be doing. And then in the next class, that wasn't us, started back saying it again. So it's just like there's no accountability. We have last year I literally fought the fight of campus police officers continuously patrolling the Black floor. So we have so many instances of them like coming onto the floors that are specifically, um, that specifically have Black students on them, and continuously walking down the floors, continuously asking people if they live there, following folks from outside of the dorm room into the dorms to later on say, do you live here? um, and when we brought this to the attention of like administration, the head of public safety, they basically told us that campus police were trying to build community with us, and that this was their way of doing so. So I think that there are so many instances of racism, and I feel like I haven't even touched on the things that come from actual students, our peers, um, and I feel like it's been endless, and there's never really any justice for it. And the university says, well, we can't stop racist things from happening. Like, no, you can't stop them from happening, but you can make sure that folks feel safe and welcome, and you can make sure the justice is served.
Well, the issue of a hanging noose is uh, a terrifying thing. I mean, if there was a swastika put up on the
Hmm.
campus, do you think there'd be a
Yeah.
different reaction of the university?
Oh, 100%. Last year, we actually had someone write the N word in spray paint on a campus building, and the university covered it up. And, they were actually not going to say anything to us until someone who had seen it posted that photo online. And I think that it kind of just speaks to the bias that the university has. Obviously, if there was a swastika put up, the person who did it would 100%, be expelled. That would have been something that we were notified about, and, everyone would have been horrified. And I think that that would be a very valid reaction. But at the same time, if we aren't ensuring that, our response and our like urgency that comes with hate crimes isn't the same across the board, then that's the problem.
And has the university sent out a letter to every student, every faculty member that this will not be tolerated, these kind of actions? Have they done that?
No. The university has sent out a letter entirely too late, but nowhere in that letter does it say that this is something that the university doesn't tolerate, and that, it basically just says, this is what happened. We'll let you know, in the future about anything else that comes from it. And I just personally feel like, you know, this is the same thing that happens every single time. The university acknowledges that something happened only because they know that if they don't, someone will say something. And then they cover it up with, like, oh, we're going to do an investigation. And then said investigation literally is never talked about again from them, or it leads to nothing.
And the incitement by Trump and others that it's okay to be a racist, uh,
Hmm.
the growing racist attacks, open racist attacks against blacks, against Asians. What is the atmosphere now for a young person in this situation?
Yeah. I mean, I think me personally, I don't believe that I've ever lived in a world where I didn't feel the direct effects of racism. I don't think that I've ever, had a period of my life where it wasn't something that I was thinking about, whether it be like in the back of my mind, the front of my mind, whatever. But I do think that we are at a point where, there's a heightened visibility of it. And I think, on one hand, it is incredibly bold while everyone is kind of thinking about racism to do something as drastic as hanging a noose. And I think that that is a clear indicator that they know that there will be nothing that happens to them. If you hang a noose outside of your balcony where that room is attached to your name, and everyone can see it on the campus, to me, in some ways, it kind of feels like not only do you believe that nothing will happen to you, but also it kind of feels like a threat. Um, or like they're trying to incite some type of violence. And I think that that's something that I've tried to make very clear to administrators and just the general community, is that we don't know if this news was intended for something that for someone that goes to the university. We don't know if it was intended for one of our own Black Student Union members or anything like that. And I think that that's the I think that is the very uncomfortable truth of, when we downplay situations, we don't really get to the root of what they could have been. And I don't know, I think that, even after Trump took office, I feel like we immediately kind of felt that, I don't know, loudless, like the folks that are like very racist. I feel like, at first there was at least some sense of quietness about it, but when he took office, it was like, all right, we're here. This is our van. You know what I mean? We have representation. Um, and I think that that has been something that is incredibly scary. But, I think, at the same time, I would rather someone be very open about the fact that they're racist so I can, stay away or handle it accordingly than someone, like just be, hidden about it. So.
And is the are students coming to the campuses? I mean, apparently there are students who are living on the campuses. Have there been any rallies? And the BSU, why don't you talk about the BSU, your involvement in it, and why it's important to organize around the BSU?
Mhm. Yeah, so the Black Student Union has been super important in my college career in general. It was one of the first spaces on USF's campus that I felt comfortable in, that I felt like, represented because the University of San Francisco, it prides itself on diversity, yet, there's only 6% of Black students. Um, so that was just a space where I could see other folks that look like me, could, talk to folks that were having similar experiences, whether they be in classes or just like in dorms and things like that. And I think that, looking back on the BSU, I think at first I really saw it as a social organization. But I think that within my time during my time at USF, I really realized that, it's so much more than that. It's a space for, in some ways radical organizing. At the end of the day, I do feel like there is no other organization on that campus that is going to unapologetically advocate for Black students like we will. And I think that, you know, obviously BSU meetings in terms of like social interactions are important and they're real. But I think at the core of our existence is really just ensuring that Black students on the campus feel comfortable, feel safer, and that, we continuously make steps for the next students to come in. So I think that this year, especially, has been a year of just continuous organizing from the Black Student Union.
And what kind of support have you received since you've gone public and demanded that this student be expelled from the university?
Yeah, we've actually received a lot of support, especially from different organizations within the Black community. So, SF Bayview, um, just speaking to some of the folks there, we've received a lot of support from, social media, like pages like the Black Bay Area, Black San Francisco, um, mostly just folks within like that Black community in San Francisco. But I think at the same time, whenever you break a story out into the general public, there's going to be the opposite of that as well. So there are folks that are saying like, they're sensitive, a noose is not that big of a deal. And, there are always going to be people that go out of their way to take something that is clearly racist and try to make it into some other intention. So I feel like we haven't necessarily interacted with those folks directly, but you go into the comment sections of these news posts and you'll see it.
Okay, well, I want to thank you very much for joining us on Work Week. We've been talking to Brianna Johnson. She's president of the University of San Francisco Black Student Union. So thanks for joining us on Work Week.
Okay, thank you.